Hello, hello. Thank you for joining us. Happy Wednesday. I had to check in my head to make sure it was Wednesday. So the goal of this event is primarily to answer your questions about ASB. So I have been a long time attendee. This is my first year being involved in the organization. Um, I've noticed that sometimes information is in different places and that can be a little bit confusing. That's part of the reason we're having this event. But we also, I've also seen how difficult it is to organize this event, and so I understand why. But we've tried to do some things to bring information together. The student representative, Anna Bales, is going to give a little bit of overview of the student events. And then we have some questions prepared, but we also want to get your questions as part of this event. We received a grant from the National Science Foundation for the first time this year, and so this event is part of the programming for that. So I just want to acknowledge our sponsors. For today, if you would like to ask a question, you can either put it in the chat or you can raise your hand and we'll ask you to unmute and you can ask it directly. And so I'm gonna turn it over to Anna to talk a little bit about the student events.
All right, great. Thank you, Dr. Bashorner, and thank you everyone for coming. I know some of you've never been to an ASB conference before, so hopefully this will help you feel a little more comfortable going into it, and some of you have been. And regardless, I look forward to meeting many of you in a few weeks. So like Dr. Bashorner said, there's lots of different events and sometimes it's hard to keep track of. So before we give it over to our panelists, I'm just gonna go over what we have on the lineup for student events. So I'll share my screen here. And this is just on the ASB website regarding the upcoming meeting in Madison. So when you get to the meeting, you'll get a program, and also there will be an app that you can download that will have the program on it. And I really recommend downloading that app. You can like star different things you want to go to and see what's happening. ASB will send out an email in the coming week with instructions on the app. So to my knowledge, we don't have anything about that yet, but keep your eyes out for that. So on the first night, Monday, right before the reception, we have a student welcome event. This is very casual. It's just like right in a corner of the main reception. It's just a place for students to meet up with each other before kind of heading to the larger reception with a bigger group, maybe see some familiar faces before heading over there. Then we have the student night out, and this is our big social event. This year it will be held at High Noon Saloon, which is a really cool venue. We'll have some appetizers and mingling, so be sure to come to that. It's always very fun. And then Tuesday over lunch, this is our mentor-mentee match program. You've probably received a bunch of emails from me to register for this, so that deadline has already passed, but basically we work to if you sign up as a mentee, we work to pair you with a mentor, either in academia, industry, postdoc, whatever you're interested in. And then you'll set up a meeting with them and just talk with them a little bit. We have this designated time over lunch to meet, but if that doesn't work for you or your mentor, you can schedule another time to meet. We will be sending out matches next week with more information about that. And then on Wednesday, this is our student chapter leadership lunch. So if you're on the leadership team for your student chapter, you would attend this. Or if you're interested in creating a student chapter. Okay, and then we have our professional development roundtables, and those are Thursday, August 8th, over lunch. And we have, I think, 16 different topics. And you can go around to different tables and go to topics of interest. You can look at some of the topics there. So that's a layout of some of our events. And then I also just briefly want to share with you the fact that, our worksheet that is going with this event. And Kurt actually just shared it. So thank you, Dr. Bashorner. So this is, you can find this here. This lists the events we just went over, as well as 2 additional events, the Women in Science event. The link in the worksheet, you can click it to register. Registration is required for that. You don't have to be a woman to attend. And then the diversity lunch, again, registration required with the link there. All right. I think that's it. And we'll talk a little bit more about these events with the panelists. So now, I'd again like to thank our 3 panelists. They're part of the student committee. We have Asal, Lauren, and Cabel. So thank you very much to them. And I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves before we start off with the panel. So Asal, do you want to go first? You're first on my screen.
Yes, yeah. So hi everyone. I'm Asal Aflatounian, and I'm in my 4th year PhD in mechanical engineering at Montana State University. And I attended 1 in-person and 2 virtual ASB conferences before.
Fantastic. Lauren, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Lauren Luginsland. I actually just completed my PhD at Old Dominion University, and I've transitioned into my postdoc at the University of South Florida. Interestingly, my first ASB was in 2015 at Ohio State. So I have attended quite a bit of ASBs, both in person and virtually. So I'm very excited to be a part of the panel today.
I remember that meeting fondly. And then Cabel.
Hi, my name is Cabel. I'm a PhD candidate going into my 4th year here at New Mexico State University. My degree will be in kinesiology with like a sports biomechanics research focus. I was at Knoxville last year, and then just because my advisor is more of a motor learning guy, I've been in a lot of like motor learning, motor behavior conferences as well.
Well, we're very excited to have the 3 of you with us. One last thing before we jump into the questions. Either Anna or I will put a link to the survey in the chat. We use this feedback to improve our events next year, and to provide information to our sponsors of how well we did with our funding. So if you have to leave early, my request is to fill out the survey before leaving. And we will get started with, I'm going to start with a question, but as I mentioned, please feel free to add questions to the chat or to raise your hand if you want to ask a question. But I will get things started. My first question is, what is something that you wish someone had told you prior to attending your first ASB meeting? And I'm gonna ask Asal first.
Yeah, so about this question, I think I realized that it's nice to know, like if you got a presentation or thematic poster, it's good to know who other people are presenting in your session, and also like see what are the research focused on, and like seeing some of their previous papers or their advisors. I realized that last year I have a thematic poster, and I wish I searched more before I get to that presentation, because there was an interesting discussion, but I wish I know more before I saw those people over there. So yeah.
That's great. And just a little bit of context, ASB has both regular poster sessions and thematic poster sessions. During the regular poster sessions, there are many posters, hundreds of posters that you can wander around. And in a thematic poster session, I don't remember the exact number, but maybe around between 5 and 7 posters. And
Yeah.
each person introduces their poster briefly to the entire audience, and then the audience interacts with those posters. Cabel, what do you wish somebody had told you prior to attending your first ASB, which I guess would have been Knoxville?
Yeah, so last year was my first ASB, and I was in a unique situation where I had to go alone. Like I didn't have my advisor or other people from my department. I didn't actually know anybody outside the student committee. So one thing I wish kind of had like been told to me is that everyone at the conference is just a person. Like you'll see big names, people like papers you've read, maybe you cited, people that have secured, you know, crazy $6 million NSF grants, like really big heavy hitters in the field. But it's just another person, right? It's someone that's you can very much approach and go up and talk to and engage with. And I think that can be intimidating if it's your first time. You know, you see their name all around, maybe they're involved in research or they're just, you know, high in the field. So it can be very intimidating when you see them give a talk or, you know, they're talking with colleagues or whatever. But I think we're a very approachable field. And if you go up to somebody and you want to start a conversation with them, it's very easy to do so. So don't be intimidated by that. Just kind of have that reminder that we're all people and we're all, you know, happy to talk about our research. Who doesn't want to talk about, you know, what we spend our life doing?
Yeah, I love that answer. And I feel like that's especially true at ASB. I don't know if it's true everywhere, but it's definitely true at this conference. Lauren, anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I guess so for me, when my first ASB, I was actually going into my senior year of undergrad. So for me, I wasn't quite sure everything with research. I came from a smaller, medium-sized university. So research in general was just a little less known to me. So attending kind of the Columbus ASB and seeing some of those labs and everything that like I was exposed to kind of made me better understand how big of a field biomechanics really is. So that was something as an undergrad I wasn't necessarily aware of at the time. In terms of kind of something that I wish I knew more of, one along the lines of what Cabel said was just how nice everyone is. I think for a lot of us, we look at people that are well into their career, maybe they're senior scientists, but trying to realize that we're all on the same ladder. We all started at the same spot and we're all just trying to go higher. So trying to really remind yourself of that when you talk to people. I wish I talked to more professors and research scientists when I could. And then the other little tidbit was I wish I was more involved. So my first conference, I didn't attend any of the like women in science events or the diversity luncheon and different things like that. So that was something for me. Once I got into that, the second time I went, I was like, oh, I wish I didn't miss out on that. It was a great opportunity to meet people. So I think getting involved in some of those types of luncheons or meetups would be super helpful. And I wish I knew that.
That's great. And Lauren, I'm actually gonna start with you on the next question. So there are events that require advanced registration, and so people need to be thinking about them now. And if you wait to think about those at the event, it will be too late. And so I think that there are 3 in particular that I know of that registration is currently open. Women in Science event, the diversity lunch, and the banquet was part of your registration through the website. Anna, is there anything else I should mention?
I believe that's it. I will say I did get a question about different affinity groups. So the different affinity groups like the Black Biomechanics Association or Latinx in Biomechanics, those are open and you can go to those. You don't have to register. So feel free to just drop into those as you're interested.
Okay, so my question. Lauren, what do you think about those three events or any of those that you've attended now, the Women in Science event, the diversity lunch, and the banquet? Is there anything you want to say about what happens at those events and are, you know, why might they be worth registering for?
Sure. So I'll actually start with some of the affinity groups. So I also know the International Women in Biomechanics group. They usually have their event. I need to check when it will be, but it's usually the first night of ASB or the right at the beginning. And the idea that they do that is so if you do come alone or you are trying to meet new people, it's a good way to mingle, have a face to a name at the start of the conference. And then throughout the conference, you can say, hey, are you going to attend this session? I think I'm going to get some lunch. Would you like to join me? So that was a great way to kind of have meetups as well. So I would definitely check into those affinity groups. Like Anna said, those don't require any registration. It's just a big joint group where you can attend or the meetup. And in terms of registration for actual like Women in Science event, the diversity luncheon, and the banquet, I have attended all three of them. I do enjoy all three of them. I have already signed up for the Women in Science and the diversity luncheon. I will say last year, I'm pretty confident the Women in Science event ended up on like, they ran out of spots and there was a tentative list. So if you haven't signed up for that already, I would recommend it. You do not have to be a woman to register. There are allies and everything as well. I definitely would recommend looking that up in the registration as well. But last year, specifically, as that one's fresh on the mind for that event, there was plenty of food and there was roundtable discussions. So there was kind of a topic that was brought up and you had a table lead and the lead would walk you through some of the questions. And as a group, you would kind of collaborate at your table and think of possible answers for kind of what you would do in this circumstance, kind of how to lead better in the field, and certain kind of topics like that. So yes, in short, I would definitely recommend those types of events. And if you have further questions about those, you can feel free to chat with me more offline.
Awesome. And just as a reminder, those documents, those worksheets that I put in the chat have links to the registrations for the Women in Science event and the diversity lunch. Asal, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I also, as Lauren mentioned, I also enjoyed them last year, and the woman in STEM that was, I remember that was crowded and full, but those are really nice to connect and meet new people. Like in that event, I remember I just randomly assigned to a table, and I met new people, undergrads, postdocs, or professors, and it was really nice to connect and discuss and see what other people doing in field of biomechanics. And yeah, also for the last day ceremony, I also enjoy that a lot because you're gonna see another like fun part of people like professors and big names to see they are also like person, and it was really fun. Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
I think something that often I see with first-time attendees is they see the word banquet and they're like, what is a banquet? And it is not as fancy as it sounds. You can kind of wear what you prefer to wear and just show up and talk to people. Cabel, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, there was just some cool kind of student events that you can attend as well. Like the student night out is really nice because it's more of an informal setting to kind of meet people that are in the same boat as you, which is really, really helpful. In terms of just making friends and connecting with others. And then there was also an event, I believe it was during one of the lunch times. I think Anna ran it last year at Knoxville, where you meet up with like other ASB student groups at their specific school. You can kind of see what they're doing and running at theirs, which is really, really interesting because then you kind of get to see what students are doing at their university, at their facility, and how maybe you can kind of bring some stuff back to your school. Even if you don't have your own sort of ASB student group, it just helps generate some cool ideas and events to put on, maybe for your department or, things you can bring to your advisor. So there's definitely things you can kind of pop in and out of, just for student oriented things that could be really helpful for first timers or just people that want to connect with, other students that are in the same, sort of like career paths.
Yeah, so what the event Cable's talking about is that student chapter leadership event over lunch one day. And often so ASB is a national society, but we have individual student chapters at certain universities who want to create their own chapter. So those chapter leaders will kind of talk about what they've been up to and share ideas. But like Cabel said, even if you're not part of a student chapter, you can definitely come and just learn about some biomechanics events at different universities, and also maybe think about if you want to start your own chapter. So thanks, Cabel. We have a few questions in the chat. And actually, these are more logistical questions, so I won't send these to the panel. I'll just answer them here. So the first question is the teaching biomechanics interest group open to students? The answer is yes. The teaching biomechanics interest group is super friendly and welcoming. I mean, everyone at ASB is, but that group is particularly excited to recruit students. So if that's of interest to you, you should definitely consider going. I will note that unfortunately it does overlap with the professional development roundtables. We try to avoid overlap, but the society is growing and we do have a lot of overlapping events. So if you want to go to both, you can always kind of attend one and then go to the other, go in and out. Or you can choose one or the other. I won't be offended, but just so you know, there will be some tough decisions to make. Okay. Another question, will the teaching biomechanics interest group and early teaching career newbies interest groups be combined as one? Yes, I think those are just like combining into that same teaching in biomechanics special interest group meeting that's happening on Thursday over lunch. Okay.
And I also see that Keith asks, the annual ASB conference tends to be run by student leader committees at a different university or host site. So I think it's about sort of the organization of the event. And there is generally a program chair and a meeting chair. And the program chair is in charge of all of the events, especially the scientific content of the meeting, and then the meeting chair is in charge of logistics and local flavor, and some of the other events. And in addition to those chairs that handle the meeting, there is an ASB executive board that runs both the society and has input for the meeting and certain responsibilities for the meeting. All right, I'm gonna move on to Samira's question. So it's two questions about the oral presentations. First, are the audience for each presentation the people in that specific field? And second, are presenters required to submit the slides to ASB in advance? And so I'll answer the second one, which is a logistical question. Typically, you will upload your slides either the day of or the day before. So there's usually a room where you upload the slides to before your session, but you don't need to submit them several days ahead of your session. You just need to come to the event with the slides ready. And then I'm gonna send the first question to the panel. And so maybe I'll start with Cabel. So when you were at Knoxville, did you have a presentation?
I did a poster.
You did a poster. And so in your experience, we can do this question for both posters and presentations. In your experience, were people who you were talking with in your direct field, or were there people outside of your field, or both, or what was sort of the audience for your poster?
Yeah, I would say across, orals or posters, it's a pretty good mix of both. You obviously have people that are attending because they're interested in that, topic in that sort of section or whatever. Or people that maybe just kind of have some downtime, they'll pop in and sit for a bit. Maybe they don't ask any questions, but it's a pretty, at least I thought, a pretty broad audience. More so for the posters because it's a long time period. It's a big venue. People are kind of coming and going. With oral presentations, because they kind of close the doors and people don't want to, do a comeuppance coming back and forth. It's a little more kind of closed in, but I would still say it's a pretty good mix. Obviously, the majority is going to be people interested in that field or that topic because they want to hear you talk about it. But you'll still get some people that just kind of come in and sit on it just to see what's going on, and especially if it's something like new that they're not super familiar with, but maybe they want to get interested in, maybe they want to start a project in. I know that happens a lot with like the AI machine learning field, so people want to just sit in on it in case there's something there. So yeah, long story short, I'd say it's a pretty good blend of people that know the field and people that are just new to it still.
And Lauren, do you want to speak to the audience at a presentation?
Yeah, so I guess kind of piggybacking off of the posters, something that was suggested to me in the past that I thought was really helpful was, since it's kind of people filtering through to your poster, I would kind of have two different like spiels prepared. So one that's directed towards someone that maybe is just stopping by, is less familiar with your topic. And then maybe one where you can, if they're on a similar playing field or they are really honed in on your research, you're more prepared to talk about some of more the detailed methodology of the approach. So I usually like to, when someone comes up to my poster, just ask like, oh, my name is Lauren.
All right, thank you all so much.
My name is Lauren. What type of research are you interested in or conducting? And then kind of go from there. So I just wanted to kind of get that piece of advice in there. And then in terms of oral presentations, they're just like Cabel was saying, there are usually concurrent sessions going on. So you sometimes do get more of the individuals that are interested in your specific field that you'll be talking about or the topic within your session. But overall, it could just be a general mix of people that are just kind of eager to learn.
And I'm going to plug a link that I just put in the chat, which is a presentation that we did, I think, last week on how to present and prepare posters. And the speaker talked about preparing for questions from different audience members. Asal, do you have more to add to that?
I think most of them are covered, but I also see a mix of people coming. Probably you get more questions from people who are working on that area, but you're also gonna see people who are like, who wanna start a research or new project in your research field. So you probably get you may get question after talk to them about your method or some of the stuff. So it's kind of like a mix of people who are working on that field, who are new, or who are just coming as an interest.
I'll also just mention, as you all are kind of listening to our panelists, I know there's a lot of like logistical things to learn, and I'd also encourage you to maybe ask them some more or consider asking some more like questions about how to navigate a conference. So they know about logistics, but a lot of them have also been really successful at like going to talk, like finding talks that are helpful, or introducing themselves to other students or professors. So those are also questions that you can ask them as well. It doesn't have to only be logistics.
And we'll let that lead into another question So there are so many technical sessions and posters at this meeting. In fact, a lot of times there are 4 or 5 different talks happening at one time. And so strategically, how do each of you create a plan for yourselves? And we'll start with Asal, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's hard to manage, but I try to like make a plan. If you can make it ahead of conference, that helps, but also every day I just look at the plan and make my schedule for the next day in the conference. But I'm gonna suggest select 2 different things that happen at the same time and you have your most interest in, and have one of them prioritize for the other one. So you probably may join one of these events, and if you see it's not what you think or it's less catch your interest than you thought, you can go to the second option that you choose. But also if there are 2 of them that you really like to join, I try to split them like in halftime, jump to the next one. And for the poster sessions, I also try to add a time at the end of one of these events to leave earlier and take a look around the posters and see what I can find interest. Yeah.
And that's a really good point. You are not required to stay for an entire session. You can jump in for a talk and then switch to another room for another talk. In fact, you will see that's pretty common. So Anna put a link to all of the presentations and posters. That's currently the best way to see what will be at ASB the week before the event. They will also release an app that will be a little easier to search. So if you're struggling to navigate with this PDF document, know that the app will be helpful also. Lauren, how do you create a plan?
Yeah, so I would say very similar to Asal. I look at the program and kind of go through to look at different topics I'm interested in. But I also try and find a topic or a presentation where I'm super less familiar with. So I like to kind of still poke in there to kind of learn more about that topic and become more familiar. While like going through everything, it does kind of start to get a little tiring for sitting for such a long time. I also have found it super useful to kind of go through and visit with the vendors in the vendor hall and talk a lot with them also about kind of different conferences they have been at and different opportunities and hearing what's new and exciting with kind of the industry side of things too, which is also a great opportunity if you're potentially looking for a job in the future or different things like that. But I would say overall that's my plan, choosing topics that I'm really interested in, one that I don't know as much about, and then making sure I also visit with vendors too and finding time for that.
And I'm just gonna ask a quick follow-up. Can you elaborate on, you had mentioned that you try and see things that you're interested in, but then you also try and push yourself to see things that you don't know as much about. Are you able to give an example?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say I do a lot traditionally with motion capture and gait analysis. And so a topic that I was less familiar with because I'm more of the kinesiology side a few years ago was a lot with IMUs. And I know that was a hot topic moving forward, but I didn't really quite know a lot about it. So I started attending some sessions that were more focused on IMUs or wearables, machine learning, to learn more about that. And that actually helped me gain a lot more insight. And I ended up doing my dissertation focused on IMUs. So kind of wasn't the avenue that or path that I had sought out for myself, but kind of attending some different topics that I'm less familiar with really kind of sparked inspiration for topics moving forward. And then you also are able to identify people that are in the field right now that are doing fantastic work in these topics and then can start conversation with them afterwards or throughout the conference as well.
Awesome. So I see in the chat,
I
Tips?
can answer. Oh, sorry,
Oh.
Kurt.
Good.
I was going to say, I wasn't sure if one of the other panelists wanted to say something, but there are some questions in the chat. The first one I'll answer just because it's a logistical question. Will the sessions be recorded and then uploaded to the ASB website for view post-conference? Unfortunately, they will not. This is something, one of the benefits that happened during virtual conferences for COVID, but that we no longer do that. So I would say if there's something that you're interested in learning more about later, try to see if you can identify maybe who is giving that talk, and then maybe try to follow up with them either at the conference or later. You can always reach out via email, or a lot of times if there's a talk you're interested in that you missed, there might be an associated poster that then you can go find during the poster session.
Can I add, there, I think, will be a shared folder where presenters can upload a supplemental document to their abstract. No one will be required to do this, but some people may choose to upload their slides or additional information that might be helpful if you miss a talk.
Great, thank you. Oh, and then Abed gave us a comment. He would recommend to download the ASB 2024 app, which is what we were talking about before, because then you can add your favorite sessions and look them up quickly. All right, I'll go to Roberto's question. Roberto asks, what are some tips for what to bring to the conference? Backpack, notepad, pens, water bottle, etc. I forget who has not talked from the panel most recently, but I think maybe Cabel. So Cabel, do you want to address that first?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt at all to bring a backpack. You know, if you want to throw your laptop in there and maybe a notepad and a pen. Sometimes it's easy to kind of, you know, jot down notes, or in between sessions if you need to, you know, do some work or check your email. There is, you know, some downtimes here and there, and maybe it's just easier to stay at the conference center instead of shooting back to your hotel. And I know all of us are busy, but then the school semester picks up pretty soon after the conference, so emails start flooding in pretty quickly. You'll see, you know, people working in between. So I don't think it hurts to have like sort of like little mini care package with you at the conference, just to help take care of yourself and make sure, you know, water, maybe a little snack here and there, or a notepad or a laptop. It wouldn't be, you know, you wouldn't be ridiculed for having a backpack on at the conference. You won't look silly or anything like that. It would be completely understandable.
There tends to be lots of food and water and coffee provided at this conference. This crowd is definitely a wear the backpack with your shirt and tie kind of crowd. So yeah, that would definitely be okay.
I will note that ASB does provide lunch and some snack breaks, but we do not provide breakfast this year. So if you are a breakfast person, which I know I am, and probably everyone should be, the hotels have breakfast, or you can get elsewhere, but just make sure you consider that before coming to the conference. Lauren or Asal, do you have anything to add of things you might want to bring to the conference?
No, that sounds great.
Yeah, I think that's what I also did. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. So someone's asking about the job market poster session. So on the program schedule for Thursday, there is a job market poster session. What does it entail? Lauren, did you do this session last year? Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so I did do the job market poster session last year. I believe last year was the first year that ASB has conducted the job market poster session. So I think kind of everyone was trying to have a better understanding of what that all entailed. Based off of my experience last year, you created your poster, and I think an email went out about if you wanted to sign up for it a couple weeks ago. So I'm not sure if that has been officially set with the program of who is entailed. If you are interested in still participating and want to see if that's a possibility, I would recommend emailing the program director. I'm unsure. Oh, thank you. It looks like they set out acceptances today. But basically, you have your poster set up. That is the best way to kind of market yourself. I think, which was helpful, I've seen on Twitter, if anyone's on Twitter, some people from last year have actually posted what their poster looked like last year to help facilitate those that might be doing it this year as well. And basically individuals who were either had job postings already available and were looking for candidates for those roles, or knew that they would be looking to hire and interview in the future, would come around poster to poster and kind of mingle with you. So I think the biggest suggestion I had for that was have either your website or a business card or something to provide those individuals with your contact information to make sure that you are kind of on their radar as well. Those were kind of my suggestions.
Thanks, Lauren. And yeah, they've already they've already decided who's participating in that. It required some advance sign up. But I'm sure they'll have it again in the future if it might be something you're interested in. And just to note, I did just place a link in the chat. There was a question about what you should wear if you're not presenting. I would say you still want to look like professional and wear some business casual attire. So keep the things you suggested, like a polo shirt is very appropriate. I don't usually see a lot of people wearing shorts, especially because inside it's usually cold and air conditioned. So pants is probably a safer bet. But that link that I posted, if you scroll down to the bottom, there's some flyers that actually Cabel made that are very lovely and have a lot of tips, including what to wear, or like suggestions on what you could wear.
So we had mentioned questions earlier, and we talked about how to answer questions, but I want to flip that around. At ASB, how do you ask a question at a presentation, and what might be your reasons for asking a question? Asal, do you want to get us started?
Yeah. So yeah, that feels a little tough to say, but I'm I myself try to think if that question is appropriate, or is it, I mean, like, is the length of, is it gonna be takes time for about the timing of the session, or if I can like ask that person later in some of the networking session, just talk to them later about that. So that's one of the things I think about, like how long would be the answer. And the other thing is if I feel like if my research is related to that area, I definitely like I'm thinking if it's logistic and if it's help my research as well to ask that question. But I feel if I'm not deep knowledge about that field, I probably like do the same, like still maybe find their abstract to read it and then talk to them later to get more information. So yeah, that's what I thought it would be helpful.
That's a good point. Lauren, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I guess personally, I tend to I don't ask too many questions during the session. I sometimes jot down specific notes. So if I see them later, I can ask. But what I think is important when you do ask a question is to make sure that if you were the person answering it, making sure that that's a question that you kind of would want also, like, basically think about how your question is adding to the discussion or adding to the session. So I think that is a key component to make sure that what you're asking is actually going to help spark maybe some thought process or get things going, rather than maybe asking a specific methodology question that could have alternative answers. I would say something more kind of super detailed like that, I would take offline and ask them kind of throughout the conference, but kind of like bigger picture or asking how this could kind of be expanded upon in the future and lead to more research ideas to kind of get everyone's brains and juices flowing, I think are usually great ways to go.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I love this distinction that you can either, you know, you can either ask a question in the session if you think it serves, you know, the audience and the discussion, or you can ask a question one-on-one later if it's really just a question that's more something that you specifically are interested in. The one thing I will add is no one is born as a person who can ask great questions. This is a skill that's honed. And so I always encourage my students to take a risk and ask a question if they have one in the audience, because I think over time it does make you better at participating in those discussions. So I would encourage you to take the risk to ask a question if you have one. Cabel, anything to add?
Yeah, I think both those points are strong. And just remember, like, the conference is more of a research showcase than a research defense. Like, you shouldn't go up there with a critical question, right? Anyone can nitpick methodology or statistical analysis. But it should be good. Like, it should be generating a discussion where it's more like, oh, what challenges, you know, did you face with data collection or something like that? Because that's things to consider if somebody wants to do a similar line of research. So I just think it should be more like that. And not to say that anyone's really, you know, tough at these kind of conferences. I feel like we have a pretty good field where people, you know, they understand if it's a student presenting, they're not going to start attacking their research or anything like that. But just, I know it's a lot easier to be critical than it is to be, you know, praising. So just kind of having that in the back of your mind that they should be interesting questions and not, you know, even if it doesn't, you don't mean to be attacking, sometimes it can just unfortunately come out that way. So yeah, just, you know, be kind instead of critical kind of questions.
And one last note, typically at the American Society of Biomechanics meeting, the convention is to say your name and your institution prior to your question. So you will see people go up to the microphone and I might say, my name is Kurt Schorner from the University of Pittsburgh, and then I'll ask my question. I have one other question in my bank. So if you have questions, now is the time to put them in the chat or raise your hand. My last question is, with events going from as early as 7 in the morning to as late as 10 or 11 p.m. at night, are you all active this entire time? And if not, how do you strategize, you know, when you want to be at events and when you want to rest for other events? And I lost track of how many questions I've sent to each of you, but I'll start with Asal.
So yeah, last year I tried to push myself to be really active. But I realized, for example, if you have a presentation, I try to have a free time, like miss one of the session to practice for my own presentation. So that's kind of like, again, I was working on something, it's not more resting. But it's something you should think about. Like if you make a plan, especially using the app, that's really helpful. You can manage if you feel like, try it at the first day. If you feel like, oh, I'm so like burn out, maybe on the second day change, like add some rest time for yourself. But I feel like the breaking time that we have during the conference, that helps to give me energized and also networking with other people.
Cabel, what are you? Do you go all day or do you selectively pick some rest breaks?
So me personally, I really need the structure, which is why I really, really like the conference app. Because as you start what you want to attend, it'll sort of build a schedule for you. And you can see like, okay, this time I need to be in this conference room for this session. Or I need to be here, there. And I think then the conference program itself has a really nice flow to it where you get some recovery in between. But as Asal said, like after you kind of make that structure and you see how the day one goes, if you realize like that was too much, then you can play around with it for the next day and be like, okay, I need maybe like a larger break in the middle of the day or something like that. So if you're able to, I would definitely get the conference app and sort of start to star things you want to attend, start to see what that schedule is going to look like. And then maybe, you know, kind of play with it a little bit, see if one day is too much or if one day was too easy and you can add in a couple more events, or maybe kind of sit out for one event so you can kind of regroup yourself. But yeah, I would definitely stress the conference app and being able to use that scheduling in the conference app because it just helps so much with seeing how packed your day is and where you need to be and when, and you know how that's going to impact your energy throughout the week.
Lauren, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I agree completely with both of those answers. I would say personally, I really structured around when I will be presenting. So if I know one morning that I'm presenting at 10 a.m., maybe I will make it to the breakfast sessions or the beginning ones just to make sure I have that extra time before my presentation. And then also I view it kind of also as like active rest. So visiting kind of the vendors and talking with them. So you're taking a different mental break, but you're not fully going back to the room and resting, or having different conversations with some colleagues can also be helpful to help kind of refresh you for the entire day.
I also want to throw in my 2 cents. Everyone's different. And so try not to compare yourself to like, oh, my lab mate is going to every single session and then staying out all night, like going out to the bars. Like everyone's different. And for you to be your best, you just have to know yourself. Maybe you really cannot attend every session, and that is totally fine. I don't usually attend every session because I know that there's like things I need to be more on for. And then so I need to like build in some time for myself. So know yourself. You'll probably learn about yourself through this conference too, if you haven't before. So yeah, just try to go easy on yourself and know what's best for you. And then the other thing I would say is Lauren has mentioned the vendors a few times. And I just want to point out that those are a really useful tool if you're using any type of like equipment in your lab, which you probably are. So it's good to make some connections with those people. And then especially if you're interested in pursuing opportunities more in like industry or outside of academia, those are some really great connections that you can make. And a lot of times those vendors are actually also like sort of scoping out people who might be interested in an internship or working for them in the future. So if that's something interesting to you, make sure you're thinking about checking out those vendors and getting in contact with them as well.
And I'll also add from the faculty side, I don't attend things all day. And if I see that there's only 1 or 2 talks that I'm only kind of interested in, I will absolutely just set aside that time for me to either go back to my room or go for a walk. And I have found that I get more out of a meeting by sometimes going to less and really engaging with the content I do attend. I want to plug one other event, mostly because there often are misconceptions about it. On the last day, there will be the business meeting, and many students think the business meeting is not for them. It's for only the organizers. And if you are curious about the inner workings of a conference and a society and the people behind all of the events, definitely attend the business meeting. It's kind of a hidden gem of the meeting, in my opinion. Let's see. So Keith asked about the 5K fun road race, which doesn't seem to be on the website. I know it's on the program at a glance. It's the last day.
Yeah, I believe it's Saturday morning. I want to say Saturday morning or Friday, either one. It's one of the mornings, but I don't see it on their website.
And I remember it being 7 or 7:30. Go ahead, Anna.
I was gonna say that it is Friday morning and they usually, it's usually not quite a race. It's actually, I don't think it's ever a race. I think it's just like a meetup of people who want to run together. And they'll in that app program, and when you get to the conference where there's the full program, they'll tell you like, we're meeting here at 7. And it's just a fun way to kind of be active with some other ASB attendees. I hope that answered your question, Keith.
Yep, that makes sense. Thank you.
All right, so we are at the end of our time, but I do want to give the panelists just one last chance. Is there anything that you were like, oh, I want to remember to tell people about this during the panel that you have not mentioned yet? And I'll go left to right on my screen. I'll start with Lauren.
Yeah, so I think one thing that I thought was very important is in the past, I've done a lot of the mentor-mentee meetup lunches. And what I would say is every year then I see my previous mentor at the conference. And in past times, I've been like, oh, I don't say hi because I think they have forgotten maybe who I am. And last year at the conference, my mentor from like 2 years ago saw me and was like, Lauren, why don't you ever come up to me and say hi? Like, it wasn't a quick one, like luncheon that we had to talk. Like, I want to keep talking with you throughout kind of your development, and like, I'm here to answer questions. So I just wanted to make a plug that if you have had a mentor in the past, and you know they're going to ASB, maybe reach out to them, send an email and say, I would love to just kind of touch base with you again, or say hello. Don't be afraid to kind of go up to them again because they will remember you.
That's great advice. Asal?
Yeah, I'm also gonna add to Lauren's point. That's like that opportunity. I mean, it's really helpful. So try to get most out of it, because I'm still in contact with one of my mentors from 3 years ago. I still like sending emails and like give update about the research, and it's really nice to talk someone out of your school. And if you like, we have kind of close research area, but it's not the same. So it's kind of see what other people doing. And yeah, I'm gonna suggest to make your connection and also try to connect with other people in different events going on. This is a great opportunity to know more people in the biomechanics world.
And Cabel, I'm going to give you the last word.
Yeah, I'll keep it simple. Just really enjoy it. I mean, it can be stressful, between the travel and the presentation stuff, and kind of get lost in the moment. So just have fun and enjoy it. You're in probably a new city that you haven't been in before with a lot of really smart, like-minded people, and it can be a really fun time if you take advantage and enjoy it and be present. Even just walking through the poster presentations, go up and talk to someone that you don't know or you don't know anything about their research, and just see what happens and see where it flows, and really make sure you take advantage and enjoy your time in Madison in the next couple of weeks. It'll be a fun time no matter what.
That's a great closing point. I'm just going to plug the survey one last time. Please fill it out. And I feel pretty confident in speaking for all 5 of us that when you see us in Madison, come say hi. We're here to talk with you.
Would you be able to email the survey?
Yes.
Because I've been trying to watch the interpreters, so to fill that out at the same time is a little difficult.
Absolutely. Anna, we can email that out, right?
Yes, I will send an email.
And if you could thank the panelists, thank you for being here. And thank you all.